now I invite, last but not the least, the last speaker. Someone has to be. So, yes, may I invite my friend and Pranav Kumar. He is head of international trade. He handles international trade issues. CII. He's been also very proactive with, India-Africa engagement, economic engagement. His bio has already been circulated. So now I ask Pranav to speak about, to look ahead and talk about two issues which may have been bothering a lot of people actually. That to talk about everything else is fine, but what about trade and investment, which needs a stable, positive environment, Right now we're living through very despairing, distressing times. Investment, as they say, is an act of faith. So how do you, going forward, how do you see economic partnership between India and Africa going in these pandemic times and beyond? And you may briefly like to touch on the African continental free trade area and what role it can play in transforming fortunes of the continent. Over to you, Pranav.
Yeah, thank you very much, Manish. After listening to all the eminent panelists, very little I could add at this point of time. But since you raised the issue of continental free trade area, Africa, and given the current uncertain situation because of pandemic, outbreak of pandemic, how we can move forward. So, Ambassador Rahul Chawla, initially, he already listed what all new issues, new areas where India and Africa can cooperate. And if you see the list of it, like solar energy, bridging digital divide, traditional medicines, blue economy, triangular cooperation, again, is very important. Study in India, and we are hugely dependent. We want more African students to come to India. Women empowerment, fourth industrial revolutions, all these are very important subjects where India and Indian private sector can cooperate and collaborate with African continent, African nations. Now, coming to your question on continental free trade area Africa, how it can help galvanize or expedite the India-Africa cooperation in trade and investment. Before taking up this issue, let me just give a broader perspective. If you look at the current global scenario, all over we are seeing disruption. The disruption, of course, not only because of pandemic. Pandemic, in fact, it has further exaggerated and magnified the disruption. But before that, we have witnessed the big trade war involving US and China that has again big impact globally, because invariably most of the countries, either your biggest trading partner is US or your biggest trading partner is China. So this has brought big disruption in the global economy. Europe, you know that for last 3-4 years, because of the Brexit and all, again was in a turmoil. Within Asia Pacific, we were negotiating the big continental or big trade agreement like RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. But again, India at the last moment decided to not to completely withdraw, but of course wait for more time to see if we can come back to the RCEP fold. So from North America to Europe to Asia Pacific, we have witnessed a significant amount of disruption, and that has really impacted the mood of the business, because business planning and business strategy depends upon the certainty, some kind of predictability. And if you compare with the African continent situation, Africa also witnessed disruption, but more in the positive in nature. Agenda 2063 already we know that's a very visionary and long-term agenda for the African continent. And more importantly, the big initiative by 55 African nations to integrate the African economy. That's a big step forward in spite of the various challenges we know. But they went ahead, they signed the agreement in 2018, so it's almost more than 1.5 years. They are going ahead, and now they are planning to go into the second phase of negotiations. And that will definitely have big impact on African engagement with the rest of the world. Because if you see the Africa as a continent, the intra-Africa trade is very minimal, very low in comparison to intra-regional trade in whether it's Europe or America or Asia you talk about. So, so Africa depends upon other parts of the world both for investment and trade. So if this continental free trade area of Africa, if this goes ahead and help in the integration of the African continent, not only it will help in intra-Africa trade, but also help in attracting more investment from India and other parts of the world. Because if you see the major concern of Indian investment, for instance, because since the African market is not integrated, individual African country is not big in terms of, if you see the big investment has to go, then of course investor would need a economies of a scale also. So if even not continent-wise, even 4 or 5 regional economies are also integrated, that's a huge attractiveness for Indian investment and investment from other parts of the world to go to Africa. So, so this is one area which is we all are eagerly looking for. In fact, Ambassador Chavra also mentioned about that Indian corporate circle has to be sensitized more about the progress which African continent, African countries are making slowly, but in a very positive direction about the integration of global economy, and that will have a huge impact and positive impact on the mood of the Indian businesses to look forward to African continent. Second issue is again somebody mentioned about the duty-free tariff preference scheme which India announced in 2008 at the first India-Africa Forum Summit, and later on it was scaled up, and the current coverage is more than 98.4%, more than 98% duty free. But if you see the impact of duty free tariff preference scheme on the actual export from African countries to African, means though this agreement is only for the African LDCs, but they are big in number, there are 34, 35 African LDCs, but we haven't seen much increase in the export from Africa to India. And of course, there are reasons behind it. And except Tanzania and a couple of other countries, they have not been able to increase their export to India. So, in fact, we have been doing some work on that. CIA has partnered with International Trade Center Geneva. They have a big project on the duty-free tariff preference, and also they're trying to see how Indian investment can go. So, at that time, as CIA, we interacted with many African diplomats, African private sector leaders, and all. Their common concern was, look, Africa as a continent, and particularly they have a duty-free access all over the world. If they want to export to Europe, they have EBA. They want to export to America, they have an African Growth and Opportunity Act. China has given duty-free access. Japan has given duty-free access. India has given duty-free access. So as far as market access is concerned, they have no problem. But they need what they will export. They need more investment to enhance their productive capacity, manufacturing capability. Then they would be able to export more to India and other parts of the world. So the major factor here is how we can help increase our investment into Africa, enhance the manufacturing capability, and that is what is needed today. And we think that continental free trade area of Africa, that will be a big stimulator on that front. Thank you very much.